let's sort of drill down on how the theory of intelligent design works. So the first step that ID theorists do when they do an ID study is they first learn to recognize design in the natural world. And we do that by studying the world around us to identify the properties of objects which are always associated with intelligent design. For example, we can study objects in the world that we know were designed: garden hoses, computers, books, languages. We can look at things that we know were designed and say, what are some special properties that we always find in objects that we know were designed? We can also study intelligent agents who are designing things. We can say, when intelligent agents act like human beings, what do we do? What do we produce? And by doing this, we can then develop what we call design detection criteria. Basically, we are making predictions based upon our understanding of what is found in designed objects, what intelligent agents do when they design things. And we can say, now when we find these design detection criteria, we can say that something was designed. And some of these criteria might be things like complex and specified information, CSI, other forms of information like irreducible complexity, when you have lots of a system that has to have lots of parts present in order for it to function. Blueprints, that's a good indicator of a design. Even just something having a purpose or a function could be an indicator of design, because designers always do things for a purpose. When we find parts being reused in different designs, you find cars that have wheels, you find airplanes that have wheels, parts being reused in different designs. That's another hallmark of the way designers operate. Coordination of parts, things that are fitting together, coming together to perform some function that has a purpose. That's another great indicator that something was designed. So we have all these design detection criteria, and we can then go out and we can seek to detect design in nature. So what does that look like? Basically, we study natural objects, and we say, okay, we're going to study this microscopic feature under the microscope, and we're going to see if it has these design detection criteria. Do we find complex and specified information? Do we find irreducible complexity? Do we find high information content, purpose, function, coordination of parts, blueprints, reusage of parts? These are all hallmarks of design and things that tell us that something was designed. And we find these different properties, these criteria are met, we can say that we are detecting design. Okay, so this is sort of very much a very basic, positive way that we can detect design by finding in nature the kind of information and complexity which in our experience always comes from intelligence. So I mentioned earlier that ID is an historical science. What does that mean, and how can we use science to study events of the past? Well, historical sciences study past events and try to determine what caused them. I like the way that Stephen Jay Gould, the famous paleontologist, put it. He said that historical sciences infer history from its results. And historical sciences often use what is called the principle of uniformitarianism. This is an idea that says that the present is the key to the past. Basically, we can study causes that are at work in the world around us in the present day, and then ask where those causes can help explain events of the past and where they're basically useful. Let me give you guys an example from my own field of geology of how this can work. Let's say that you observe in the present day that a stream is capable of stripping sediment away from a stream bed, okay? And over time, you actually observe that each year, this stream bed gets a little bit deeper. So you make this observation in the present day that water flowing through a stream bed is capable of stripping away sediment from a stream bed, okay? So you then infer that maybe over many years, a large stream or river could cut through an entire gorge. So when you come across this deep gorge, you say, you know what? Based upon my present day observation that water flowing through a stream can strip sediment away from a stream bed, maybe over a long period of time, this river could actually cut through and create this giant gorge, okay? This is using present day observations to explain events of the past. So how does this work with intelligent design? Well, it's really not that complicated. You have an ID theorist who starts off by observing that mind is the cause of certain kinds of information. And then she goes out into the natural world and she finds that exact same kind of information, which in her experience she already saw always comes from a mind. And so then she infers that a mind was the cause of that information that she saw in the natural world. Sometime in the past, a mind designed that object that she has discovered. So this is how ID can function as a historical argument. ID is also a positive argument. What does it mean to be a positive argument? Well, maybe to show how something is a positive argument, I'll argue negatively and show you what a negative argument looks like. A negative argument might work like this. It could say, theory X is false. Okay, fine. In science, it's actually okay to say that. We can say in science that this argument doesn't work. This scientific theory is not explaining the evidence. It's therefore false. Negative arguments can be okay to use. But if you were to then say, theory X is false, therefore theory Y is true, this argument would have problems because evidence against one theory does not therefore necessarily in and of itself constitute evidence for another theory. So for example, if I were to say that natural selection cannot explain high levels of complex and specified information, or CSI, therefore intelligent design, that would not be a valid argument. We can't just say, okay, natural selection can't do it, therefore intelligent design. But the good news is that this is not how ID argues. ID is always looking for positive evidence. Again, we're finding in nature the kind of information and complexity which in our experience with the world around us, we already know always comes from intelligence, okay? So according to Stephen Meyer, when we are trying to use design detection methods, we can use a method what he calls comparing multiple competing hypotheses, okay? So basically, we're looking at different hypotheses and seeing which ones can explain the most data in the world around us, okay? So the way this would work with intelligent design is when we find informational patterns which are known from experience to be produced only by intelligent agents, then we can make a positive inference that intelligent design is the best explanation. And this is what we might call detecting design. So intelligence is the cause of high CSI. Natural selection cannot generate high CSI, therefore we infer design. This is a valid argument, and this is how ID argues. We can also potentially falsify ID by finding a data set that would not be predicted by intelligent design, such as, for example, the claim that the genome is chock full of junk DNA. This is not something that ID would predict, but some other model might be better at explaining that. So if intelligence does not explain X, Y, and Z, but natural selection does explain X, Y, and Z, then we could falsify ID and say that ID really does not explain this data set. Turns out junk DNA isn't true, but that's for another time. Okay, so also, ID uses the scientific method to make its claims. Why does this matter? Well, the scientific method is often described as probably a four-step process of observation, hypothesis, experiment, and conclusion. And ID uses the scientific method to make claims in a variety of different scientific fields, but I'm going to just discuss how ID uses the scientific method in biochemistry right now. We start off with the observation that intelligent agents generate highly specified codes and irreducibly complex machines. We then make a hypothesis or prediction that biology will contain high, complex, and specified information codes and irreducibly complex machines. And then we can do experiments. Research has shown, such as research done by Douglas Axe, that when you study proteins, the amino acid sequence of a protein has to be just right in order for a functional protein to be able to work properly. It's basically high CSI. It's an unlikely sequence of amino acids that has to be in just the right order, matching just the right pattern for a protein to work. And so this is high CSI that Doug Axe has discovered in biology. And we also find that our cells are full of irreducibly complex molecular machines. If you went to Emily Reeves's talk, you learned about how we have these molecular machines in plants that generate energy, and biology is full of these molecular machines. So we can then, therefore, conclude that many complex features of living systems were designed.